morning, everyone. This is T Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Oracle of the Self. This is our coaching training call. I do believe it's number 19 out of the series. Who knows how many there's going to ultimately be, but we're well into the material at this point. Last time around, we talked about the engagement ring layer of the ChangeGrid, but pretty much we just talked about what's happening along the heart line. And again, for those of you that are new to our material, the heart line is a horizontal line that would go through perfectly balanced perceptions. So if I drew a horizontal line, including 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, just straight horizontal all the way out here to 12, 12, there'd be a horizontal line. We refer to that line as the heart line. And as you learn other things about tension management and other things about the ChangeGrid, you'll see why that heart line is such an important concept in the world of ChangeWorks. But suffice to say that the closer you are to the heart line, the more efficient and elegant you become in your use of information and your execution of whatever your plan is, or whatever you're trying to pursue. So we talk a lot about the difference between being effective, being efficient, and being elegant. And ultimately, we're all striving for elegance, although efficient is at least a giant step in the right direction. So as you get closer and closer to the heart line, you naturally become more efficient about what you're doing. And ultimately, as you explore those different efficient ways of doing something, you'll find that one of them is more elegant than the others. And so elegance is about simplicity. What are the fewest number of resources that something requires? So elegance is simple. In fact, since I've already been babbling about this, let me just give you the whole 3-minute understanding of these 3 E's. So whenever you're trying to accomplish something, the first thing you want to do is to find something that proves to be effective in how to do it. So for example, if I wanted a hole in the wall, give me some ideas about effective ways to put a hole in the wall. What could you guys do to put a hole in a wall?
Hammer.
Get a hammer.
Get a hammer. What else could you do?
A nail.
A nail. What else could I do? I want a hole in the wall.
Punch it.
Punch it.
That's not elegant.
There you go. There are many, many ways of creating a hole in a wall, and so we would say that the set of possibilities that would be deemed effective is very, very large. However, depending on what our driving force is behind wanting this hole, we may say, well, no, I need to do it in a way that's a little bit more this, a little bit more that, a little bit more controlled. And so we want something that's really going to be efficient. What is going to give us the hole we want, where we want it, when we want it there? And so give me some ideas. If you wanted the hole to now be more efficient, where you can control where it's going, what its size happens to be, et cetera, what would you use?
I'd use a drill.
You could use a drill to make this hole. And so we always make this joke about when we're doing sales training, we say, how many of you own an electric drill? And you can imagine most hands in the audience go up. Then we say, did you want a drill? When you bought that drill, is that what you really wanted? Did you want a drill? And of course, people at first say, well, yeah. I said, no, you wanted a hole. And so that's why you just decided that the drill is a more efficient way for you to end up getting that hole in the wall. So now, while there may be other things beyond a drill that would prove to be efficient ways of putting a hole in a wall, another thing that I want to go for is elegance. What is going to give me the hole in the wall that I want, where I want it, when I want it, how I want it, that uses the fewest possible variables, consumes the fewest number of resources? And so I might say to you that in the world of drills, there are corded drills and there are cordless drills. Why do cordless drills exist?
Convenience.
Convenience. And so maybe I'm saying, like, well, one of the things that I really have to factor in when it comes to resources is the time that it takes to get that hole in the wall. And the time that it takes has to include the preparation, the mise en place, getting all the things you need ready for you to use them to create this. And so if you can just grab an electric or a handheld cordless drill, and it already has the bit in it that you want, okay, you're good to go. And so we might say that the cordless drill could be considered to be the more elegant of the options, given the, whatever the choices happen to be. That's not necessarily the case, because if I said, well, we want something that is efficient, but we're looking for an elegant solution when we need to create 500 of these holes manually within 1 day's time. Now, what's the problem with a cordless drill when you're trying to make that many holes?
It runs out of power.
It runs out of power. And so now you got
a backup battery.
Right, you got to have batteries that you're
Yes.
rotating around, and they drain faster than they charge. And so you got all this. In that particular case, we may say no, a corded drill is the more elegant way to get that job done. So it's not elegant just because it's simple. It has to still provide the efficiency and the effectiveness that you're really looking for. So that's what these 3 E's are all about. So yeah, anyway, as we approach the heartline from either direction, we start to become more efficient, and ultimately we should be able to identify options that would be in the elegant category, the easiest way to get something done. Yeah. All right, thoughts about that?
Elegance could also be fewest expletives.
Oh, do tell.
Well, you wouldn't be swearing as much with a
Oh.
electric drill.
Very good. Very.
So elegance is minus.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. Yeah. Well, and even looking at buying a new car or an appliance, how they're all so jam-packed with gadgets these days. And sometimes you want, all I want is a simple car. All I want is a simple refrigerator. And you guys know how hard it is to actually find a simple car or a simple refrigerator. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, I thought I was the only one.
Oh, no. All I really want for a refrigerator is that it'd be nice if it had a door, and it'd be nice if I could adjust the temperature. I don't need it to show me what the news for the day is.
Oh my
Or
God.
anything else.
No, I don't need that. Even like on the water dispenser, that's a handy thing to have. But then you got to fuss with filters, and I've already got a filter on the faucet. Why am I, it's just a whole bunch of stuff that is just going to break.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, we can say that those things might add more features, but features don't necessarily bring us greater levels of benefit when it comes to the core reason why we're buying something. So yeah, anyway, there you go. All right, so that's the heartline. Very big explanation. That's what we're really talking about. So we talked last time around about the engagement rings and laying on the heartline, what it's all about. So for a moment, I'd like you guys to all move yourselves to the heartline of power. There you are in the power response state. You're feeling very much on top of things. Doesn't matter where you position your ability right now. Just put yourself on that heartline. You're feeling confident, in control of what's going on, ready to approach and deal with whatever needs to be approached and dealt with. And so there you are. Now, the very first thing that that will happen is that you're going to become aware of something that it needs to be done. So if you guys even think about what you have on schedule for today, you could say that I'm now aware of these things. I haven't done anything quite yet, but I know that I'm aware that X exists, or this task needs to be taken care of, whatever it is. So you are aware that things need to be done. So can you feel what that's like when you're on the heartline, confident, in control of what's going on, and you're aware of something, but nothing beyond awareness? Yeah.
Yes.
You guys can get there? Yeah. So it's all that. Most of our life is filled in that spot, fully aware of things that we haven't really decided to do something. Now, let's say that awareness is going to give way to an intention. As you think about that which you are now aware of, you may find your mind saying, today's the day to get that done. saying that today is the day to get that done is an intention is being stated or being thought of in your mind. Or you say something like, I want to get that out of the way. As soon as the call is over, I'm going to get that done. These are all statements of intention, right? The intention didn't get it done. The intention just says, yes, I will do it. This is when I'll do it. So we can get pretty strong in our intentions as we start to put some time frames or something that we could hold ourselves accountable against as we do that. So can you guys feel how something about which you were aware can move out grid into something that you have now formulated an intention around? Yeah.
Yes.
Now you're still in power. You're still in the heart line. It's all very balanced. It's all very good. Now you get out there and you actually do whatever it is that needs to be done. So, whatever, I don't know what it is, take out the garbage, whatever it is, or, you know, throw the load of laundry, and I don't know what's on your list of things you're aware of, but nevertheless, you get it all done. Now, getting it all done when you are in power feels a very different way than getting something done when you're down in power apathy, or up in power stress, or even stress. Getting something done when you are in power very much feels like you're in the flow of things. You know, so you can multitask. You can clean the kitchen and keep the laundry going and figure out what's for dinner. And you can do all these things as kind of like a single symphony, as opposed to a bunch of separated sorts of things. So you're in the flow, you're getting it done. It's not taxing anything about you. It's not a stretch. Because again, to be on the heart line, there has to be a perfect balance between perceived ability and perceived challenge. So you might say getting it done is a 9, but at the same moment you're saying, but my ability to get it done is also a 9. And so I can meet the challenge. I can get it all done, get it all done. And maybe, just maybe, if it's something that's really time dependent, or you just want to get it out of the way, maybe you need to move out to execution, raise the challenge a little bit more to just say, no, I can't do anything else until this is done. And so maybe that would give you the little bit of boost of challenge to get you into full execution mode. Nevertheless, you're along the heart line during all of these things I've just described. So it feels you're very aware, you formulate a nice intention around it, you get out there and do those things that need to get done, and it feels not so much effortless as much as it feels like it's in flow. In fact, if you read the work of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi on this flow psychology, this is what he's talking about. He's talking about the heartline experience. So it all happens very, very nice. Maybe, just maybe, you push yourself a little bit more and you end up in the execution phase. Can you all feel that? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah. So T, where is the critical thinking, strategic thinking? Is that in the intention?
Yeah, because as long as you keep it in the world of intention, then it's all in your head. Now, the moment you start writing some stuff down, like you say, let's put together a plan. I see putting together the plan as one of those actions that would fall into the category of engagement. Because remember, engagement is you are now actively doing those things in order to meet whatever the intention happens to be. So as long as it's in your head, I'd say it's an intention. And even if you start talking to other people about it, I'm going to do this and I'm planning on doing that. And yeah, later on, we're going to do blah, blah, blah. I'm hearing intentions. I haven't seen it happen yet. So that's the big deal. This is all still a matter of, I don't know, thoughts and words that haven't been implemented, executed on. I don't know what better word to give it. Yeah, thoughts about that?
That's interesting. I was reading a study, a longitudinal study on the most employable skills.
Oh.
And most of those skills by this 80,000hours.org, which is associated with Oxford, most of the top 10 had to do with so-called soft skills. So I had critical thinking, strategic thinking, judgment, those kinds of things. And in their analyses, why is most employable skills is they're not easily duplicated.
Right.
Like you can't, duplicate someone else's thinking and apply it to your own kind of thing. So they're saying these things are valuable in terms of career longevity is what they were actually studying. So I found that interesting because, organizations tend to devalue so-called soft skills versus hard skills, that kind of nonsense.
Well, and one of the things that those of us that identify as trainers are up against all the time is this difference between soft skills and hard skills. And you're right. They tend to say we have to do the hard skills. The hard skills training for everyone, if you're not in the training world, are the mechanical things on how to run the machine. Or how to I don't know, solve a problem if X is going on, whatever. It's really more about the way things are operating and make sure things are operating accordingly. So those kinds of things are hard skills. They're absolutely mandatory for your employees to learn thoroughly and be able to execute. Where soft skills are the kinds of things that Brian has just been describing. These are things that are happening more in the mind of the individual. So judgment, creativity, interpersonal relationship skills, emotional intelligence, many, 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 many things fall into the category of soft skills training.
Hey, T.
Yeah.
So at the Association for Talent Development conference I was in last week, there was a lot of conversation, to Brian's point, of mindset layer. You can't layer skill sets without layering mindset first.
Right.
So there's a lot of conversation, a lot of classes around mindset before skill set.
Yeah. And it's absolutely right. The thing I'll add to that is that to Brian's point that these things can't be learned. First of all, I believe that we can, as a good trainer with a good training program, I think we can always help anybody get better. But if we're looking for people who have really got these skill sets innate to them, then we do have to be looking at things like personality types, perhaps looking at the background of the kinds of things that they've been doing and how they can describe having those things done. Things like emotional intelligence, things like just plain IQ. Long before we did tests on things like strategic thinking, blah, 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 we just measured IQ. And the fact is that half of all the population is in the lower half of the population when it comes to IQ, right? I mean, that's the way it works. So the vast majority of people have lower levels of intelligence than the brightest group of people. It's just the way it works. And so we have to recognize that somewhere along that continuum, there's going to be a level of intelligence that makes people better at thinking, using their brain for whatever purposes, whether it's creative or whether it's technical or whatever. There's an intelligence factor. Thoughts about that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Anj and I have lost the screen. Our screen is turned white with the word Zoom in the middle.
Really? How
Yeah,
rude.
I can see it.
Yes, I can still see it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
I still see the screen. I still see everything perfectly.
yeah. If you close that window, try closing the window and reopening it. But the other thing I can certainly do is stop the share and start it up again, and see if that does anything.
Well, let me get out of Zoom and go back in.
Well, and then also let me give you guys this comfort in thinking this is the only slide we're going to be looking at. And so if you did download it, maybe you could just open up that.
The one you just had up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I've got that.
yeah, if you just open up that little PDF file, then you're looking at what I'm showing anyway. So
Can I ask Brian a quick question?
sure, please do.
Did they address this? Let me get back to my thought here. Did they address the soft skills and the critical thinking and the strategic thinking? Did they address the idea of processes that a lot of companies have gone into where they really don't want you to think? You've got to follow this process and that's that.
Yeah.
Right. They looked at several variables that underlie their study, because that site, 80,000hours.org, is named such because they say we have 80,000 hours in a working lifetime. And so many of the things they study are what the behaviors and different kind of career longevity that has impact. And so, in fact, I'll put the research in the chat there.
Great. Yep. Make sure you put it to everyone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, it just comes to me.
And Brian,
Yes.
my understanding is that all of that is true because it's stuff that AI cannot duplicate. So now there's a shift to soft skills because they're unique to humans.
Oh, that's
Right,
Mm.
right.
That's the reason for it, and there is a shift. Yep.
Right. But what drew my interest and what T was talking about in the Heartline is because, you know, we're as a whole, we're talking about Oracle itself, and we're losing attention spans, we're losing IQ points at this point.
Right,
So I'm like,
sure.
how are people flowing along this Heartline?
Yeah.
right.
Well, and again, keep in mind that the having a population that sits on the Heartline is very threatening to people who are trying to exert their control
Exactly.
over
That's
us.
what I'm getting at.
Our best way of defending ourselves and in actually ultimately helping society as we know it is to get ourselves, first of all, get ourselves on the Heartline, but ultimately get ourselves in the center of the change grid. So inside of that green circle is, you know, go back to that one. Inside of the green circle is where we definitely want to be living our lives. And we get it, you know, to do a lot of things, you got to step out a little bit further between the green and the red, but really life is lived, life is enjoyed, life works well if we can just keep ourselves as an individual and as a collective inside of the green circle. But unfortunately, if we're inside the green circle, it's extremely difficult and at times impossible to manipulate us.
Yeah, I think the dynamic that Ajay was talking about is probably more prevalent in larger organizations than it is the small and medium-sized companies.
Right.
Because in smaller companies, you're trying to build that self-awareness and build a self-managing team and organization, as opposed to just trying to, you know, have a bunch of processes or procedures that people are following.
Exactly. Now, let me share an example of that. Just a day or two ago, I was looking at the news online, and it was talking about some store. I forget where it was. I don't even know which store it is. So just choose any retail store that's got kind of a presence all over the country. And people came in. A group came in and started to just steal all of their high-priced merchandise and leave with all of it. And, you've heard of these stories happening time and time again now. Well, the employees on duty decided to call the police and report the theft. Those employees were fired because that violates company policy.
What?
The company policy says that if someone's in your store and robbing you or shoplifting or whatever, what you want to do is give them a clean, unrestricted way out. The store feels that the threat that person might attack an employee or another shopper is far greater than the merchandise loss.
So the criminal.
It's a criminal behavior. And then, by the way, I figured out, why are they stealing all this stuff? As it turns out, they steal it, and then within the next week or two, they start to return the stuff to the store for cash.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I thought they were selling it all on the black market, and maybe some are, but no, they actually return it to the stores it was stolen from in order to get full.
So then you can call the police.
Well, you would think, but they got fired because they violated a procedure. And that's what I'm just talking about. In that moment, if it was any of us, we would have said, well, I didn't stop them from leaving the store with the merchandise. I just called the police. And
no, but I'm talking about when they return it. That's when you call the police.
Well, right, because they don't. Well, that's why they're saying stores more and more are insisting on receipts. You know, it used to be certain stores you could return anything to, and they might not give you the cash, but they give you a store credit if you didn't have the receipt. Now they're going like, nah, you got to have the receipt. That's the way it is. Okay, anywho, well, this is all very fascinating, but I did want to make sure that we were talking about the other areas of the change grid than the Heartline. So we all understand the Heartline. We all understand this progression. It all feels very good. Thank you. That's all great. Now, I want to point out, draw to your attention that in each one of these engagement rings, there is an upgrid area or an upgrade expression of that ring. And there is also a downgrid expression of that ring. And so, again, awareness, I can go from pre-aware to something that I'm hyper aware of. Like if I find out that the smoke alarms are going off in the house in the middle of the night, that's going to make me hyper aware. How does hyper aware differ in your experience of it from plain old awareness, mid-grid awareness?
You need to take action. So it's something that's imminent.
Something is imminent, something, there is a threat that you have to acknowledge and deal with right then and there. So you don't have time to think about anything else, look at anything else. You just need to grab the kids, grab the pets, and get out. And yeah, and so that's hyperware. It's an inescapable kind of a situation. Now that would feel very different than the awareness that we were just describing earlier on, a heartline awareness. Now, what about hypo awareness, a very down grid? So now you become aware of something. And last time around, I said that you wake up and even before your eyes are open, you can hear rain hitting your window pane and you think it's raining. All right, so fine. Are you aware of the fact that it's raining? Sure. But hypo awareness, how does that feel different than mid-grid awareness or heartline awareness or up-grid awareness? What does this feel like?
No action needed.
No action needed. We're all under control. Ability is very high, challenge is very low. So yes, I'm aware that X is happening. Now, as we start to apply this to our own lives and to business settings, for those of you that are doing this as part of your work, there's a lot of other things that the awareness can be too low around. So for example, how often do companies rest on their laurels for so long, they decide they don't really need to be doing anything? The example I can give you most vividly would be Kmart. For the longest time, Kmart thought, it was the king of the hill. It was even bigger than Walmart. And yeah, certainly in the early days. Well, the world kept changing. And if you're this far down grid, you don't notice those changes, or you don't give those changes the attention that they need, or the value that those changes, the lessons the changes are bringing to you. And so of all the retailers, which one was the last to have any kind of presence on the internet? Where was the last to even do things that you could order directly from the store and ship to them? Kmart never did that. And so as a result, they fell by the wayside. And I'm a member of a group on Facebook that's all about Detroit history, because I lived in Detroit most of my life. Tom and Anja are from the Metro Detroit area as well. And one of them was a list of 50 businesses that were household names when we would have been in school and are now completely gone. And it's restaurants, it's retailers, do you guys remember Winkleman's?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, whatever happened to
Oh, yeah.
Winkleman's? I don't know, but things come and things go, and it's going to be true no matter where we are. So that hypo awareness, yes, go ahead. That hypo awareness also plays out in business settings or in our own lives when we have basically become so, complacent about things that we no longer look at them critically. So we just take it all for granted. We believe we've totally mastered it. And so all kinds of things that are in our awareness get so little thought, so little attention, that we end up never taking any action to do anything about them. So we're operating on autopilot. We're just turning over on our rainy morning and finding a cool place on the pillow and going back to sleep. That's what's happening down here. All right. So can you guys?
T,
Yes.
that's interesting. I'm thinking of the energy sector. When I did some of my DEI sessions with organizations in that sector, it was interesting because some of them have a policy around safety that I think relates to your conversation on the hypo awareness. In other words, every meeting, regardless of what that meeting is for, regardless if it's a training session, but every collection of employees, it starts off with a safety announcement. Yeah. And right. It could be something as simple as someone saying, hey guys, just want to remind you when you go in the break room, if you spill something on the floor, please clean it up. Yeah. To something much more major.
Right.
But,
exactly.
But the intention around the safety and the employees is extremely high.
So they're not dealing with or trusting that group of people with having those soft skills.
That could be part of it, particularly when someone keeps reminding you of things that you are actively doing and doing well, and they're still reminding you. They become convinced that the only reason why you're doing it and doing it well is because they keep on reminding you. And now we're talking about micromanagement, things like that. I'll give you a personal example of it. So my mom passed away several years ago. I forget what year it was. In fact, Shags isn't on the line, but I was actually in San Francisco doing a ChangeWorks program when she passed away. Well, I can tell you that the last time I saw my mom might have been, I don't know, maybe within the year prior to all that. And I need to go to the bathroom. So I went down the hallway to go to the bathroom, and she goes, "Make sure you flush." Okay. So it's like I don't know, I was in my late 50s by then. It's kind of like I am no longer a school kid. You know, it's like it's just ridiculous because they end up micromanaging you, believing that you didn't develop the skill, you didn't develop the habit, you never matured, or whatever the case may be. And so, yeah, you're right. Sometimes people continue to do that because they either don't see or they don't acknowledge that the person has that soft skill already in place. However, there's also plenty of times that people who have the soft skills very well mastered are doing them more and more on autopilot. That's what we're talking about. Downgrade performance of activities can lead to safety issues because they're not being as vigilant about watching for things that might have been there before, and, particularly in a manufacturing facility or where heavy equipment is being used, they probably spend most of their money on safety trainings. Because what they're going against is that it's slipping out of someone's awareness. They're doing it, but they're doing it on autopilot. They're having conversations with colleagues when they really need to be watching what's really going on. And so I think that's part of the issue as well. And I think it's that part that makes them want to spend so much money on safety, even though, to Anja's point, in all likelihood, the vast majority of people sitting in the audience hearing that safety presentation possess all of the skills and have never done anything and routinely would clean up their little mess or whatever. But for those few that aren't paying attention, they need to be reminded because, stuff happens and stuff can be very expensive when it does happen.
I think I heard of a study that they did about people in an airplane where they give you the safety warning before it takes off. And they said that because it's always given so, procedurally, that people don't pay any attention to it. It's done too often and in exactly the same way.
Right.
And that you have to vary it to get an impact. And that was one of the reasons I think that Southwest, introduced humor.
Right. And if you guys haven't heard a Southwest safety demonstration, it's pretty hysterical. They really are. They all do their own version of it. So it's all very encouraged because it's trying to get people to pay attention to what's going on. And this is something that's very common in advertising as well. You hear the same commercial over and over and over and over. It loses any power it might have had initially because you grow numb to it. You get conditioned to it. And so, we need to sometimes do something in a very different way to grab people's attention. So, yeah. What was I going to say about that? All right. Anyway, we'll come back to it if it pops back up. All right. So we understand hyper awareness and hypo awareness. Just know that if we improve things a little bit, move things a little bit, we end up going to just awareness. So I'm fully aware, but I still have an upgrade part. Now, upgrade awareness is not that panic survival mode kind of triggering event that we're talking about this far up in stress. So this awareness here could have still, if I drew in stress, there's a part of it that's in stress, there's a part of it that's in power stress, but nevertheless, it's more upgrade. So what does upgrade awareness sound or feel like without going to the extreme of hyper awareness? You want to give me an example? Upgrade awareness.
Well, maybe what you described as raindrops on the window. You're trying to fall asleep 2 o'clock in the morning and it just won't stop and keeps you awake.
Right. So now that's it. Instead of it making you hypo aware and lulling you back to sleep, you're kind of going like, no, it really is loud out there. Did I close the windows? Those kinds of things that just say, you need to be aware of this. Your brain's doing its job. It's made you aware of this, but it's triggered in your thinking some things that may require attention sooner rather than later. Not desperate. The house isn't on fire. It's nothing like that. But we need to take care of these things. So your awareness, but awareness with a bit of a deadline, awareness with a bit of a sense of urgency around doing it. And so give you a rather routine example of this. Let's say that you guys are planning on going away on a vacation, and before you go, you need to make sure that you stop the mail and you change the temperature on the water heater, and you make sure someone's going to stop by to just check in on things, blah, blah. You end up with this little task list of things. And by the way, if you made it as a list, you've moved from awareness to intention, but you're at least aware, knowing like we're leaving for a few weeks. We got some stuff we need to really take care of. So what are those things? What's that awareness? So can you feel that the difference? It's like there is a bit of pressure around it. There is a sense of urgency. There is more tension around it than the things that would just be in the pure awareness kind of thing here. Pure awareness. Okay, I need to go and get my teeth cleaned. Fine, I'm aware of that. Whatever. Not up here. I need to get them cleaned by Friday. All right, got the idea there? So
Yeah.
time dependent, urgency, importance maybe is there. Now, what about hypo awareness? Scratch that. What about just above hypo awareness? Downgrid awareness is not this lazy, semi-conscious autopilot kind of feeling that's happening down here. You are fully aware that something needs to be done or something is happening, but you're just feeling very power apathy or even apathy about it. What does that feel like? What does that sound like?
A neighbor asked me to check for packages at her front door. She forgot to stop some mail.
Yeah.
And she asked me right as I was getting into bed. So I thought,
Yeah.
I'll do it first thing in the morning.
Yeah, right. So, okay, I'm aware of it. It doesn't require my immediate attention, but there it is. And by the way, if you're moving into power apathy, there would also be a thought accompanying that says, why me? How come someone else can't do it?
Oh, I like her very much.
Well, I understand that. There's reasons why you do it, but nevertheless, this far downgrade, you just kind of go like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. Yeah. Because remember, power apathy is all about delegating. So Tom, could you go get the packages if you're out anyway?
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So that's it. Downgrid awareness is different than mid-grid awareness, is different than upgrid awareness. Fine enough to say, fair enough to say.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a tool, T, that I use, we've used years ago, called the diversity awareness profile. And when you were talking about the hyper awareness, one of the stages of that instrument is fighter, which I would say is that hyper awareness profile.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone feels like they immediately have to start off ready to defend.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so that's upgrade awareness and downgrade awareness. Now, keep in mind, this range does not stretch as far up or down as hyper and hypo awareness would, but nevertheless, there is a stretch that is distinct enough that it's important for you guys to know, right? I mean, this is the Oracle of the Self. This is you learning how to really examine your thoughts and your actions so that you can be more efficient and maybe even elegant about the whole thing. As we come from awareness into intention, although the overall band is smaller, the range of upgrade and downgrade is tighter, there is still an upgrade area of intention and there's a downgrade area of intention. So if I said that intention is making a commitment, making a decision. You haven't really done anything yet, but you've made the decision, you've made your declaration, you've said whatever you've said, thought whatever you've thought to have that intention form. What does an upgrade intention sound like?
I need to set a deadline for this. I need
to do this. I need to do this. I got to do this. I have to do this. The statement always involves an element of of urgency and at least a hint of consequences. So like when Anja's saying, I got to do this, I need to do this. If we wanted to challenge that linguistic pattern, we would say, or what? What could happen if you did, or if you didn't? What are the outcomes that you're looking at? But there's an implication that there is some outcome that would be undesirable if we delay or fail to do whatever it is. So the upgrade intentions do carry a higher level of urgency around them and tend to have a feeling of a negative consequence if they're not done. And by the way, the negative consequence could also be that, like, I have to do this so we get good seats. And so it's also be about an opportunity loss if you don't take that action. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about solving the problem. It could also just be about seizing full advantage of an opportunity. Yeah.
So then the downgrade would be the analytical aspects of that, where you're working out those details for that urgency, that or working out that sense of urgency. Yes.
Yeah, well, you could be, but let's think about where does this band actually lay when it comes to tension? A lot of downgrade intention is in power apathy. Power apathy. And so the intention is, as you've described, it could be something that's routine. And so, yes, I'm going to get around to this, or yeah, let's put that on the list, but it doesn't sound like let's do it today, or I'm just going to go ahead and get it done. It's done here. Yeah, let's make sure that we don't lose sight of this. Let's make sure it's on the to-do list. That's even a little bit of downgrade engagement, but you get the idea. It could a downgrade intention also can have an element of a desire to delegate. This is what I said to Anja. Wouldn't it be great if someone else could do that? Somebody someday should probably do X, Y, Z. And if we look at that layer where we talked about the roles, we said this is the person who is the reformer. So the reformer is the one who's always saying the world would be so much better if somebody someday did something. But that individual is not going to be that person on that day about that subject. So, but nevertheless, they can say that there should be an intention there. That would be a good idea. Maybe we should blah, blah, blah. So do I hear an intention? It's not a very strong intention, but nevertheless, it's there. It's just a downgrade intention.
Interesting.
Right.
So how would you describe, like when I'm engaged in research, like here, like I literally like write line by line. So in other words, I write the original intent down in terms of understanding health behavior.
Yeah.
I sit on that, but I ask like these questions that's leading me to further investigation. And so I come back to it.
Sure.
So how would you
here's
that
the
kind
thing.
of thing?
What you're describing is not intention. What is he describing, everybody?
That engagement?
He's describing engagement because you said you wrote it down. That's taking an action. Intention has no action involved in it.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Stuff's happening, but again, it's happening in your head and maybe in conversations, declarations to the world around you, but it doesn't really imply that any real stuff is happening quite yet. All right.
Okay.
So everything you've just said is engagement, but interestingly enough, even if we move out into engagement, you can see there's still a little bit of upgrade and there's a little bit of downgrade that's going on. Now, to help you describe what's happening, the difference between upgrade engagement, plain old everyday engagement or heartline engagement, and downgrade engagement, think about upgrade engagement is like an expressive driver. Technically, I'd even say it's more of an expressive driver. What does engagement look and sound like when you're in that expressive driver kind of mode? Think about that. You're an expressive driver, primarily driver, making something happen. Tell me. Okay, this is where you're going to hear massive amounts of enthusiasm. This is the cheerleader. This is the, yeah, we're getting it done, blah, 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 patting everybody on the back and helping everybody out. And the whole group is smiling and actively, doing all this kind of stuff. You get the feel, get the vibe. for what an expressive driver is. They're creating this amazing amount of uplifting, motivational kind of energy, and people are doing it, whistling while they work. Dragon, you're welcome to talk. Feel free. I see your hands up, so you feel free to chime in.
Yes, hi, T. Hi, greetings to you all. Nice to hear you again, T.
Hi, hi.
I was just wondering about something that you both said. I mean, some people, and I admit I'm one of them, you tend to sometimes write about something, what you're going to do. You keep on writing about it and you don't do it.
Well, that's fine, because now we're
So
still
is that intention or engagement?
Well, that's actually going to be downgrade engagement. So let's take a look at where you're at if you're this kind of area. Think of yourself as being like an analytical driver. You're thinking about doing something. So, but you're actually still doing it. The driver energy is still there. You're still engaged. But when I look at this, I think this is the engagement that someone who is lost in the process itself. So I've always characterized downgrade engagement as the scientist sitting for hours looking through a microscope. Anyone on the outside looking at them would say, well, they're not really doing much, are they? But what do we know is really the truth if someone is that locked into something, that engaged, they're very much engaged, lost in the work that needs to be done. Well, if we go just in between intention and engagement, this is where Brian's talking about writing things down, or I'm a very big one for drawing plans, because you guys if you've been to the house, we have some pretty big gardens, and we're always in the garden, and I'm always drawing it all out, what can go where. Linda's always finding the right plants that'll be in the right spot, all that kind of stuff is part of engagement. But that doesn't mean stuff's going to ultimately look like that, or that those plants are going to instantly be planted, for no other reason than we're in the heat of the desert. But nevertheless, you get the idea. There's a lot of preparation and planning kind of engagement activity that may feel like what you're really doing is fleshing out the intention. I think what you're doing is activating the intention. You've moved.
Right. Exactly.
Into something, because look, you're starting to enter power, and so that means that's all happening. But nevertheless, that feels very different than this upgrade engagement would feel like.
Right, and that's kind of my mental model behind the way that I do things. The mental model is I call them guiding operating principles for my GOP, and the idea is to set the conditions that increase the probability of success. And so by that, I map things out a certain way for the engagement itself.
That's right. And so if you think about that kind of engagement, the situation that you've described, can you imagine if someone said to you, the only way that we could ever say you're engaged is if you're jumping up and down and hooping and hollering and being so excited about everything, this real upgrade motivational kind of thing? How many would say that's not true? That's a form of engagement, but that's not necessarily the right expression of engagement in all activities, right?
Exactly.
And if I'm downgrade engagement, there is a certain, again, your downgrade power apathy, a little bit going on. I've lost my sense of urgency around it. I can take my time. I want to be more thorough. I really want to be doing the right things in the right way. And then in the middle of it, the person is just doing that which needs to be done in a very streamlined kind of way. I want to throw this question to Tom and Anja for just a second. If you look at engagement specifically as it applies to dance students, so dance students that have, they've got, they know a little bit about what they're doing. Have you ever had, or can you think about clients that you've had that were upgrade engagement, downgrade engagement, and mid-grade engagement? What were they like as students, and how did that impact your teaching style? Thoughts about that?
Completely impacted. That's why I got so interested in how the brain works in psychology, so I could deal with people who think differently and, don't have that excellence in mind, or don't have a path.
Right.
They understand that because you have to get them to understand that they're not doing everything right. They're not the best one, but you have to do it in a way that doesn't, everybody, even our coaches take coaching. So have to get it across in a way that they don't take it the wrong way. They don't get discouraged by that. They get
Right.
encouraged and they get to me, the best thing was to get someone excited, the joy of doing something right, to get that across. Tom has a tendency to go at it from a more technical route.
Uh-huh.
If you do this way exactly, which I think made us really a good pair, because I'm coming at it from the joy. Look at how this feels. Look at how, listen to the music, listen to the beauty of the music. And Tom was there to say, okay, more exact.
I would often say, let's shut off the music. You don't need music. You won't need
You don't
music.
deserve music.
You don't deserve music. You won't need it.
You don't deserve music.
Yeah.
You don't deserve it.
The interesting thing is, I learned this years and years ago. You can't learn to dance by dancing.
Right.
You can't
Right.
learn any martial art by fighting.
Mhm.
No.
Exactly.
But you really have to keep people engaged. That's the tough part. They can
Right.
get very
And let's add this to it. Let's say that the people that you are doing your classes with or whatever are just out to have a good time.
yeah,
If you're just out to have a good time, well, then upgrade engagement is what it's really all about. Let's
right.
have a good time.
Yeah.
But let's say, and I don't know the specific names of the different kinds of competitions, but I know that there's a certain kind of competition where the dance is pre-mapped and they're looking for your ability to execute the exact traditional steps or whatever, as opposed to doing something a little more creative. Am I right that that's still part of dance?
Yeah. Ballroom and Latin competitions are based on 9 or 10 specific dances with specific techniques and specific figures.
Everyone's on the floor at once. It's not Olympic style. You are not individually. Creativity is really not a competition. Part of it, how you.
That's more the show part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now think about that. If that is who your student is, they need to be more mid-grid engaged because they're trying to make sure they're doing things right. And they might even be a little bit down-grid engaged because you want them to study certain things. So review the videos, position of your arm, whatever, all these things make a big difference. So that's a little bit more down-grid engagement. And then we get out there and start dancing. That's mid-grade engagement because it's not just to have fun. We're here to win. Someone's got to pay for that dress.
Right.
So, all right. So that's the idea about engagement. Nevertheless, all three of these possibilities we've just described and all kinds of stopping points along that continuum would also still be described as engaged. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I love this layer because what it speaks to for me in terms of the science behind human behavior, it speaks to how the experience of the experience matters, right?
Oh,
because how you transition from one activity to the next matters just as much as your engagement in that activity. So if the transition isn't, the elegant or efficient or effective, you compromise the quality of the next activity. So that's called attention residue. And so you literally bring, especially these cognitive kinds of things, you bring it kind of carry it along with you. So it does matter quite a bit.
Yeah. Yep. It does. It does.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris chatted a note over all the psychological safety and engagement concerning cameras on in a virtual training world. It's different. Oh, it's true. It's true. Like if you guys are on a Zoom call and they're going to do the video part of it, just go like, oh man, do we really have to do that? A psychological safety isn't so much, but it means, oh man, that means I have to shave.
Well, T, it's interesting because a lot of research shows how engagement in the virtual world, especially in training, is high when everyone's camera is on, and it comes up against the thoughts of psychological safety now, where some people just don't want to have their camera on just because they don't want to participate that way for whatever reasons that are personal for them. Yeah. And then it causes the engagement and the energy of engagement of your virtual learning to sink. So that was a very popular topic as well last week.
Yeah, so that little bit of dropping down. Yeah, important to look at. The thing I've always reminded people of is that in the old days, we'd all be sitting together in a room together. That means your camera's on. So,
right.
I love that. I love that.
Sit around a conference table and you go ahead and turn off your camera. Let's see what changes. It's like, "Come on, you're there. We can see you. So stop it already.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, you only have to get dressed from the waist up. So come on. So you can leave your pajamas on. All right. So
Don't forget Seinfeld getting caught picking his nose in the car.
oh
No,
yeah, yeah. Cameras are
I
everywhere.
wasn't picking.
It wasn't a pick.
All right, let's to finish this off. Execution obviously
Hey,
doesn't have
Brian,
much of a.
Brian,
Go ahead.
Yes.
we, 2000 years ago, everything in daily life revolved around concepts and sayings from the Bible. And then 300 years ago, everybody related things to saying from Shakespeare plays and
Yeah.
sonnets. Today, relate everything to things from Seinfeld.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
Exactly. Right, because that's where the real wisdom of
And
the
Ted
world
Lasso
is.
and Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso is really good.
It is.
We're halfway through the third season. Very good show. Oh, by the way, those of you who do have Apple TV, you might be watching Ted Lasso. If you have not seen Schmigadoon, Schmigadoon is one of the best things we have ever watched. So
Really?
yeah, it's about this couple who they're having some trouble as a couple, and they end up going on a walk, and they end up passing through a cloudy kind of veil, going through a thing, and suddenly they find themselves inside of a musical. The whole world is a musical, and it's all these different musicals from long ago blended together, and the lyrics change and all that, but it is exceptionally well done. The cast is fantastic. The dancing, the singing, it's all great, great, great. So that's the first season. Well, now they've done the second season, and they're still calling it Schmegadoon. But when they arrive, now they're trying to have a baby, and they're having some trouble. So they said, let's go back to Schmegadoon and see how they can help us. And they end up walking through the cloud, and now they're in Schmicago. And so it's all the more modern kind of musical sorts of things. So absolutely well worth watching. Very funny, super well done. So yeah, and it's pretty short. They're only half-hour episodes.
Exquisitely painful.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. All right, anyway, let me finish off on execution. I know we've gone over, but let me just finish this real quick because there's not much to say about it. Inside of execution, there's not much room for an upgrade or a downgrade distinction. If I needed to make one, I would just say that the more upgrade you are when executing, the more that aggressive you're going to end up being, the more, get out of my way kind of stuff. That's what that's going to be. And if it's more leaning on the downgrade part of execution, you might just be getting the job done because the job needs to get done, and you're trying not to interact with other people, but you just want to be left alone so you can just get done whatever needs to get done because you don't really like these people, you don't really need these people, etc., but you don't want to go toe to toe with them. So upgrade is more of a fight kind of a thing, and downgrade is a little bit more of a freeze or fade sort of thing where you're just trying to go, just get out of my way, people, and I got to do what I got to do. But I'm saying that range is very, very narrow. So we usually don't make much of a distinction. And primarily it's because the vast majority of this execution area is in the danger zone. And so we really have to be aware that there is a benefit to some level of execution. Just get it done, get it done, get it done. But if you go outside of that vertical line that goes through 1010, now you're in the danger zone and you got a whole slew of problems that need to be addressed. All right, so anyway, this is the engagement ring, and basically it just tells us how engaged someone is going to be. So you can imagine when we're working with corporate clients and we say to them, we have a tool that will not only help you to describe at the activity specific level what's going on with your team, we can also tell you how engaged they are in doing the work that needs to be done. We can tell you the likelihood they're actually going to follow through and get it done. And we can tell you the type of level of support they're going to need in order to get them on track and keep them on track. So it ends up being very useful, a diagnostic tool, needs analysis kind of a tool. I think it's equally important that all of you be able to do that for yourself. So whenever you're thinking about doing anything, just quickly ask yourself, all right, how do I rate my ability to get that done? How challenging is it going to be? All right, where does that plop me on the change grid? And you're going to go like, lo and behold, I'm in intention. That explains why I'm not in engagement. How am I going to get to engagement? I got to do something to raise the challenge. And so I can rise to the occasion, prove my ability, get that engagement happening. And that's going to lead us to the next section of the training, and that's the maneuvers. Once you know where you're at on the change grid, you got to figure out where do you need to be on the change grid. And once you know those two things based on their relative positions, you got to answer the question, how am I going to move myself there? And that's where we're going to get into the different change grid maneuvers. Okay, questions, comments?
No, very good.
Great.
Interesting stuff. All right.
Awesome.
All right, well, today's a holiday, so have a good holiday, and we will talk again very soon. So bye for now, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, T.
Thanks, Tiff.
Bye-bye.
Right, exactly. Bye.